Hello, my name is Kanita.
Hello, my name is Lana. I'm Amelia Francis.
Today we're going to be discussing about Cold War.
And we're also going to be interviewing teachers.
Cold War took place during 1947 to 1991.
The Cold War was a state of geopolitical tension after World War II between powers of Eastern Bloc, Soviet Union, and Islamic State, and power of the Western Bloc, the United States, and its NATO allies. Were you alive during the Cold War?
I was. That was some time ago. Yes, I was.
What was it like?
It wasn't really very scary for me, I don't think, but occasionally you used to get programs on the television that would tell you what to do if there was a nuclear attack. That was a bit worrying.
How did it make you feel?
So,
How did it make you feel?
a bit scared, I suppose, but I think you had to rely on the fact that it would never really happen. And so it was all a bit of fantasy, really, a bit science fiction-y.
How do you think it would impact our lives if it happened again?
Well, if it was as bad as if it was like it was before, I think really people would carry on as normal, and it would just be like normal. But in the back of your mind, there'd be something that would think, well, actually, something might happen one day, but you can't actually live your life thinking that that's going to happen, because you need to get on with things, and you need to go to work, and people need to come to school and things like that. So you just carry on as normal. Yeah.
What do you think would happen to education?
In the Cold War, I think education would carry on exactly the same. Would there be an issue? There shouldn't even really be an issue about money, because the budget for the government is spread and settled. So I think schools would run as normal, because it was always there was never really a time when, there was a couple of times, but there was never really a time when you wouldn't go to school because of the Cold War. There was never a time that things stopped because of the Cold War. Everything just went on as normal.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Were you alive during the Cold War?
No, I wasn't alive during the Cold War. I'm only 44.
What do you think it would have been like if you were?
I think that, do you know how there's lots of fake news? There's a whole thing about fake news at the moment. Well, I think in those days that was the beginning of all that stuff, because Russia used to throw out lots of propaganda around America, and America used to do the same about Russia, and they always used to use the word commies. Yeah, the Americans, the commies. The commies were behind every negative act. Every problem was caused by Russian spies, the communists, and there was lots of negative media around that, which was government controlled, of course. Government controlled.
How do you think you would feel if it was happening now?
I think there's a little bit. Don't you think there's a little bit happening at the moment in the media? Have you heard about the poisoning of the spies?
Yeah.
And then all that thing about Russia and Putin saying his various things, and Theresa May saying hers. There's a little bit of that going on now, isn't there? And then Trump, perhaps, and when there was the election, there was this whole thing by Hillary Clinton that the Russians had manipulated the. So there's still a little bit of it going on right now. So how do I feel about it? Well, I think society has evolved so we can see through it because we know about the Cold War. But I think there's an awful lot out there which we believe, which isn't the case. For example, why do we know that these people died from a Russian nerve agent? Well, it's in the media. Okay. Why do we think it's Russian? Because it's in the media and we're told by the politicians. My question is, it's probably true, but it might not be. It might all be nonsense. Have you thought about that?
How do you think it would impact our lives if it happened again?
I think that we're a little bit wiser, and I think we're a little bit more media savvy. So you guys know about fake news, don't you? You've heard about it, and you're only in year 8, 7,
yeah.
Right, aren't you? So you know about that. In the 1960s and 50s, nobody knew about fake news. People read things and believed them. Now we're a little bit more cynical than the next generation are. Would it affect us? I think it might affect us if the government were to really go for the Cold War, because then what would your history lessons look like? What would your PSHE lessons feel like? What would your things about media, about the news, how would you be discussing that? Because I'm employed by the ultimately by the government, right? So, yes, we're in an academy chain, I'm employed by them, but it's through the government funding. So I wonder whether our curriculum would change. Would I be told to tell you stuff that's fake news, to back up the message that the government want to get out there? Yeah? And of course, there's also this whole thing, Cold War was fought really hard in Berlin, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Between the East German regime and the West and the Western world. And I know quite a lot about that, because I'm really interested in that, with the Stasi, which are the secret police, and how they used to bug parks, bug telephone boxes, bug apartments, bug everything, and monitor everybody so that nobody was allowed to speak positively about the Western world. And if they did, you understand?
Yeah.
So would it affect us? Well, of course, if we went back to that type of regime, oh my God. Imagine that you couldn't say what you liked about Theresa May. Like Theresa May, she's a nightmare, isn't she, really? I mean, she's a bit grumpy, a bit old. No, because it'd be bugged somewhere. So I couldn't say that. So if the government told me under those circumstances to tell you something that's quite a bit fake, but it backs up some sort of government ideal, which is fake, but then I don't do it and they find out about it, I get removed. So loads and thousands of people just disappeared in East Germany because they didn't follow the government strapline. And of course East Germany was ultimately controlled by Russia. Is that enough? Have we got another one?
Yeah. Last one.
What would happen to education?
Well, I've just explained, haven't I?
Yeah.
That the curriculum would change, wouldn't it? Yeah. Or it might do. But I'd like to think that we're a little bit more wise to this kind of stuff. But I think it's important you talk about it, and I'm going to quote a Spanish philosopher for you. Right? Spanish philosopher said, "Those who forget the past are condemned to repeat it."
Oh, yeah.
So it's important that we remember the Cold War. It's important we remember things that happened during the real war. It's important we know about Auschwitz. It's important we know about the concentration camps. It's important that you do history and you learn about the Nazi regime. It's important that you learn about the slave trade and what happened in the States with North versus... It's important you know about these things so you learn what mistakes were made then, that you will not be part of the same mistake again. Do you see? Mm-hmm. That's why history is so important.
Thank you for answering our question.
Well, it's a pleasure, girls.